Okay, hello everybody. My name is Jeff Hoffman, and the title of my presentation is The Role of CALL, Computer-Assisted Language Learning in Post-Secondary Foreign Language Classrooms. First, I'm going to talk about the overview of my topic. University of Queensland professor Mike Levy defines CALL as the search for and study of applications of the computer in language of teaching and learning. According to Dr. Warshauer of the University of California, until recently, computer-assisted language learning was a topic of relevance mostly to those who have a special interest in that area. Recently, though, computers have become so widespread in schools and homes, and their uses have expanded so dramatically, that the majority of language teachers must now begin to think about the implications of computers for language learning. Warshauer states, appropriate use of new technologies allows for a more thorough integration of language, content, and culture than ever before, and provides students with unprecedented opportunities for autonomous learning. Computer technologies not only help teachers and students to transcend linguistic, geographical, and time barriers, but also build bridges between bilingual, ESL, and foreign language programs. He continues, the history of CALL suggests the computer can serve a variety of uses for language teaching. It can be a tutor for which to offer language drills or skill practice, a stimulus for discussion and interaction, or a tool for writing and research. With the advent of the internet, it can also be a medium of global communication and a source of limitless authentic materials. Dr. Stockwell of the University of Waseda notes, the field of computer-assisted language learning is, by the very nature of its dependence on technology, one that is in a constant state of change. As a result of this change, it may be argued that the theory, research, and even practice in the field struggle to keep pace with these technological developments. Okay, I'm going to talk about three major theories of CALL here. The first one is sociocultural. Russian psychologist Vygotsky claimed that learning resulted from social interaction rather than through isolated individual effort, and that engagement with others was a critical factor in the process. In his view, learning was at first social and only later individual. So this relates to some of the ideals of collaboration and cooperative learning. I'm still learning a lot about this myself, but some of the things I do in my class are like video projects and role plays and things like that. So it gives students a chance to work in groups, promotes like collaboration, cooperation, and things like that. So just gives them a chance to work together to create something, make a video, or make a role play to create a dialogue or something like that. Okay, the next one is constructivism. Language experts Healy and Klinghammer emphasize the centrality of the learner in the learning process and the importance of the teacher in creating motivating, authentic activities that involve investigation, discussion, collaboration, and negotiation. And this relates to the ideals of constructivism and hands-on learning and student production. And some of the things I do in my class, well, I guess one of the things is oral presentations. So usually for the midterm, I have students make their own PowerPoints and give an introduction to themselves in Mandarin. And so it just gives them a chance to create something, make something creative, and do something as they want to do it. And then, kind of get ownership of their learning there. Okay, the third one is the interaction accounts. The interaction account emphasizes the role of interaction in second language development. It incorporates certain central processes such as the negotiation of meaning, in which the learner and audience engage in an ongoing process of interactional adjustments. The IA focuses on learning interactions that by necessity involve two or more people, or a person and the computer. A couple things. Well, one of the things I use in my class for that is something called spontaneous image interaction, and I use that to promote natural, authentic speech. So what I do is I usually I pick images. I choose images that spark conversation, that are chosen to spark conversation. So I put them on the overhead, and I usually ask students questions. Okay, now I'm going to move to current and past research trends. So according to UC Davis professor Robert Blake, as he states, though call has developed gradually over the last 30 years, this development can be categorized in terms of three somewhat distinct phases, which I'll refer to as behavioristic call, communicative call, and integrative call. And in his book, he traces the history of call from the 1960s mainframe computers with a behaviorist framework to the current use of the internet. According to Blake, call applications have changed from that of tutor to that of tool. So he says the most dynamic applications of computer-assisted language learning involve simulations, electronic communication, and multimedia production, rather than simple drill and practice tutorials. Okay, the first stage is in the 1960s and 70s, the behaviorist call. This was drill and practice with a focus on accuracy. And so a lot of was focused on stimulus and response, drill and practice. So the focus was on form, structure, and accuracy. The next stage was in the 1980s and 90s. This was communicative call. This was communicative exercises with focus on fluency. So this moved towards communication, but it was still pretty limited because of the technology at the time, also the limitations in multimedia. The next stage. Okay, so the current stage is the integrative stage of call, which is authentic discourse with a focus on agency. And so with the rise of the internet, now there's so many multimedia resources, and all areas of proficiency, for example, listening, speaking, reading, writing, can all be taught together. Learning can be much more efficient. There's so many more resources, and also it gives a lot of students to make their own, to produce things, and even make things for other audiences, not only in the country, but also worldwide. The last part I'm going to talk about is the areas for future research. Okay, so I'm going to move into the first area. So according to Dr. Blake, by any measure then, the key factor for enacting the brave new digital classroom still remains each teacher's will to change toward a more student-centered approach that incorporates call. So some teachers are still, a lot of teachers are using call nowadays because of the rise of technology, but there's still some teachers who may be hesitant to use it, resistant to use it, because they're used to maybe the traditional approach for a long time. So that's one area, is just kind of investigate their attitudes, and then maybe ways to encourage them to use call, to have confidence in using that, and the desire to use that. Okay, the next area is about investigating the developmental approach. So Dr. Warshauer states the goal in language learning, or language instruction, and especially in considerations of how to make use of technology, should be not only development of the language, but also development of the person. At the classroom level, that implies helping students not only to use technology as an instructional aid, but also master technology as a medium of communication, research, and knowledge production. Okay, the last area is about instructor training. So Dr. Blake states, teachers frequently incorporate in the curriculum only those technologies that they use outside of the school environment in their personal lives, despite whatever pre-service and in-service training course they have received on call. The tendency is to use the new technologies to fit current practice, rather than transforming practice through the application of a new technology. Okay, so that's what I've done so far, and thank you guys for listening.